Making films with AI is both magical and extremely maddening. And here's why. Creative people are wired to craft to absolute perfection. You're always aiming at the very top of your taste level. But the truth is, AI can get you to 80, maybe 90% there. The trick is, how do you nudge up that line a little bit so you get better results? I usually start with a seed of an idea in the back of my head. I let it sit there and germinate for a few days. I go through a lot of dumb ideas. When I feel like I have something worth developing, I break it into beats. Beats are the key moments of the story. They're not very descriptive, they just form the outline of the script. They help me see if I have a good arc. When I'm feeling good about it, I break the beats into shots. Those are the scenes I need to tell that moment of the story. And if there's dialogue, I'll write a script. If I'm working on something that is based on a true story, I usually create a gem to help keep track of the facts. For Hachiko, for example, it takes place in the 20s and 30s in Japan. I wanted to try to be as historically accurate as possible. For Laika, which takes place in the 50s in the Soviet Union, I could ask the gem questions like, what was the motto of the aircraft? When you're working on the look of your film, remember that different models yield different results. The same prompt will generate very different images. So pick your model like you would pick art mediums like oil, acrylic, or charcoal. Use the one that better tells your story. For Lost and Found, for example, these are childhood stories, so I wanted to have a more cartoonish stop-motion quality to them. For Juilliard, this is a story about loneliness, so I wanted it to feel darker, to have a more sophisticated look. For Wooly, it's a story about belonging, so I wanted the images to have a very tactile feel and texture to them. To create the images, I use a prompt expander, and I'll put a link to mine in the notes. I'll start with a description of the scene and a little bit of the look I'm trying to create. Gemini would then give me a full prompt that I can put in an image model and go back and forth trying to get the right look. If you look in the prompt, there's going to be a section describing specifically the look and feel. You can copy and paste that to create consistency generating new images. Character development follows a similar process. I start with a short description of the character that's in my mind, and I go back and forth with the model several times, trying different things until I find someone that looks the part. When I do, I use Nano Banana to refine and change the hair and wardrobe until I have exactly what I'm looking for. For Laika, because it's based on a real dog, I use it as a reference to create my character, and also all the other dogs in the film. Here again, I consulted the Gemini gem I created to see which were the popular breeds of dogs in the Soviet Union in the 50s. For Juilliard, I needed to age the character. Nano Banana is great at that. Also, you can ask it to create character sheets in different poses, different wardrobes, and different characters following the same style. My next step is to create the sets, all the locations in which the story takes place. For Laika, I wanted a brutalist feel, something that kind of looked bureaucratic and oppressive. For Hachiko, I tried to reimagine what Tokyo looked like in the 20s. Nano Banana made compositing scenes a lot easier. Here I bring in the character, the location, write a short prompt, and I get the scene I'm looking for. I can then ask it to see a profile shot, for example, or add some snow and buildings in the background. For the landing, I brought in a 3D model into Blender to find exactly the camera positions I was looking for, so I could use it as reference shots in Nano Banana. Together with the style references and the characters, I got the scene that was in my mind exactly how I pictured it. For Juilliard, the composition reflects how the character feels. He is always to the side of the frame, never the center of attention. His apartment is void of anything personal, no art on the walls, no plans, only a shrine to his music, what he dedicated his whole life and career to. There are a couple of references to one of my favorite films, Whiplash, like in this scene where he stands in front of Carnegie Hall, but also subtext baked into the shots, like the pawned instruments in the background on his way to work. Once I have most of my shots done, I bring them into an app like Lightroom, where I can have a bird's eye view of the story, but also rearrange some of the scenes to make sure I have a good flow. I also do some pre-grading here, which is very helpful for the next step. Remember, these are not just storyboard frames, they are the frames you're going to use to animate. And because you invested so much in crafting your initial frames, composition, lighting, character design, now all you have to think about is the action and performance you want in your shot. You can also add a start and an end frame, then describe what you want to happen in between. And sometimes you don't get exactly what you want. I wanted a catch net to grab Leica here. I tried dozens of times, but I couldn't get the physics right. So I changed to a cage, but the bottom of the cage slices through the dog. Changing into a dome got me what I was looking for. If you have a short scene, sometimes you will see the model filling the space.
Have a safe flight. Nahe Pragtransil. Have a safe flight. Onbegorai.
Try writing a longer prompt, asking it to do more, and then cut it out in the edit
I
later.
love you. Have a safe flight.
There are many tricks on how to get the most out of video models. The truth is, there's no silver bullet. You have to have a great deal of patience and unreasonable perseverance to get what you're looking for. Keep trying and experimenting until one time you get it right. The creative process is not a one big light bulb moment, but rather thousands of tiny little decisions you make along the way. When you're working on film production, traditionally, you're making these decisions and locking them in before you go to the next step. For example, you pick your casting, your wardrobe, your location in pre-pro. Then when you go to production, you can't change your location or change your casting. You can't, but it will cost a lot of money. In non-traditional film production with AI, you can go back and forth between these stages, so it becomes a more experimental process along the way. The post process is pretty standard. I bring all my clips into Premiere and start the edit. But there's one big difference.
Sounds like we lost the bottom of the plane.
If you find yourself missing a shot, wishing you had something you don't have, you can go back and reshoot it at any time. I also use this moment to add special effects and color grade, do the standard things you would do in post. View is also great for generating plates. Sometimes if your shot requires too many things to happen at the same time, it's better to generate the elements separately and bring them together in After Effects. When I was 14 years old, I bought a used VHS camera and I started making films with my brothers in our backyard. We made road movies and superhero movies, and in retrospect, they were terrible, but it didn't matter, because it made me so happy that I could create something of my own and share it with the world. And the world really were my neighbors, because this is way before YouTube was around. And then with time, I started working and went to film production and advertising, and I started making things for other people, for brands, for companies, but not for myself. It wasn't until Google introduced Flow last year that I started, again, unstucking the stories that were in my head and putting them out in the world. And in 9 months, I made something like 10 films. Are they all great? Absolutely not. But again, that doesn't matter, because it makes me so happy that I can get an idea out of my head and share it with the world. So if I leave you one thing, is be a 14-year-old again, because it's never been a better time to create. I can't wait to see what you make.